All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host, Jake Ellenbogen, and we have a doubleheader for you today. So get excited about that. Sadly, the first part of this doubleheader is tragic because the Rams did lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers 17-24 on Sunday. So we are going to talk about that before we preview their matchup against the Cowboys. We have to relive the pain, Jake. This was, I think, a surprise to most Rams fans. From what I saw, most Rams fans thought that we were going to come out of this week with a W. I know Jake and I did. We had a Steelers content creator on our show when we previewed the game, Adam, who also believed the Rams were going to win. And quite frankly, Jake, this was a game the Rams, I don't want to say should have won because they ended up playing like they shouldn't have won. But theoretically on paper, they should have won. And it was a very weird game. I think that the Rams really struggled. There also was a lot of questionable calls. There was a lot of them.
Same guy from week 18. Are you freaking serious?
Jake is the number one Craig. I can't even pronounce his last name, but
Craig Rolstad. I'm a Craig Rolstad hate account.
Yeah, you are.
$250,000 a year that dude makes. Why does he make more than us, Alexis?
I don't know, but he probably has your name on a watch list. Like, he has turned your name into the authorities and is like, this is my number one hater. So if something happens to me, this is who you should look for.
I mean, Craig, get better at your job and we won't have an issue. I don't know what it is to say.
His team did a very bad job in this game.
It was tragic.
It was tragic, but you can't blame everything on the calls because the Rams definitely had some other things go wrong. Couldn't make a kick. That was pretty bad. Mayer ended up losing his job. We'll talk about that as well. But Jake, looking at this game that the Rams lose, what do you think? Before I comment, I want to hear, what do you think was the main reason that the Rams weren't able to overcome the Steelers? And I'm going to use the phrase overcome the Steelers, and then, you know what? I want to say that because I'm going to save what I was going to say for later. So what do you think the reason was?
I mean, the reason was they didn't play a full 60 minutes of football. They absolutely deserved to win the first three quarters. It was the fourth quarter where Kenny Pickett was unbelievable. It was the fourth quarter when the Steelers absolutely put on a clinic. We can't lose sight of that, by the way. The Steelers dominated the fourth quarter. We could talk about how on earth did this team... No. I mean, if you go back, you watch the film, the fourth quarter, the Steelers dominated. It was an absolute clinic. And this is how Tomlin wins games. This is why they beat Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens the week before their bye. And it's why that same team, that same Lamar Jackson-led team just absolutely throttled the Lions. This Steelers team, I've said it all year, all off season. We talked about it. I thought the Steelers were going to win 12 games coming into the season. They're a team that won 7 of their last 10 last year. So, this is a good football team that's had some injuries. They lost Cam Hayward. They lost Deontay Johnson, who came back. They lost Pat Freiermuth. And dealing with a lot of the younger guys as well, having to step up. Pickens in a bigger role. So I think this is just a team that's still trying to figure it out. And they did a heck of a job. I got to give them a lot of credit for staying in there, staying in the fight. It wasn't easy, but to come away with a win the way they did in the fourth quarter, those aren't easy wins. I mean, you could say what you will, but going cross country to play the Rams, that's not an easy game. Steeler fans thought that they were going to lose, but you got to give credit. Now, I mean, the 1 yard short, the phantom pass interference call on Akello. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you even do that. I know that, Rolstad had the worst officiated game of the year last year. Wasn't just me saying that, by the way, Alexis. The entire competition committee came together and started to question whether or not the referees were properly trained to throw penalty flags after that game that cost the Lions the playoff berth. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say that the refs are the reason the Rams lost. I am going to say, though, if they didn't call that pass interference call, they would have had 3 minutes to go. And I am going to challenge anybody who says, well, you shouldn't have used your timeouts because that's hogwash. Sean McVay used a timeout on a 3rd down, got them together collectively, and they picked up the 1st down. Okay, that's first thing. Second thing is, timeouts should not matter. Can we agree on that? Timeouts shouldn't matter to challenge and whatnot. I don't get that. So they can't challenge because they don't have timeouts, because the penalty of challenging if you miss means they take away a timeout. My issue with that is if there is a hogwash call like that spot, because say what you will about the pass interference call, that's terrible. He never touched him. I mean, it's every single angle you could find it on film. But the spot, like, respot the ball. Like, we've seen it before. It was like they didn't have an angle, so they're like, yeah, it might have been there. And Aaron Donald, I'll tell you, right after watching the NBA yesterday, I saw more out of Jamal Murray complaining about the officiating in the first quarter of that game against the Lakers than I saw about Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald just kept saying over and over again, you gave them the good spot. That's not a good spot. It's a bad spot. Shouldn't have been there. I credit Aaron. We've seen him lose his cool, Alexis. We've seen him slam a helmet on the field, take it off, slam it. I have never seen Aaron Donald that calm, because I can't imagine playing that style of football, playing that game against an AFC North opponent where it's just physicality left and right, and to lose like that and know that they're wrong. It wasn't a bias thing. The announcers knew they were wrong. Everyone in the NFL was clamoring together afterwards like this was wrong. And the crazy thing is, Alexis, it wasn't even as bad of a missed call as what the Colts had to deal with, because that was some of the worst things I've ever seen. The Browns got gifted the game entirely. Now, they won because of the officiating. The game still goes on, and you weren't going to win necessarily because you were still down by 7. So I'll pass this on to you, but I just, at the end of the day, they had every opportunity to win that football game. They had over 120 yards rushing with a guy who hadn't played all year in Royce Freeman. He'd been on the practice squad, and he had been on special teams. And then Darrell Henderson, who hadn't played in a year, and he 5 days later, after signing on the roster practice squad, he's starting the game. So to me, there's no excuse. When you get 120 plus yards out of those guys, it wasn't that Kyron Williams wasn't healthy. They didn't lose the game because of that. It was because the passing attack was just not accurate. It was not great. Stafford had under a 50% completion percentage. They had a bunch of explosives and didn't score touchdowns. And that's why they lost.
I agree with you. I think, you talk about, so the Rams virtually won every major statistic in this game. They led in total yards. They had more passing yards. They had more rushing yards, and they had more yards per play. So the Rams put up the numbers significantly better than the Steelers did. But what you mentioned earlier, the Steelers in the fourth quarter executed, and the Rams did not. The Rams ended up falling apart. Now, the missed kicks obviously don't help. You go into the half 9-3. It was an ugly game. And when you have an ugly game like that and you're relying on field goals, you can't be missing them. That's just basic fact. And so that obviously hurt. But I can't say the Rams only lost because of those missed kicks, because they lost 24-17. It wouldn't have mattered anyway. The last call of the game where Kenny Pickett was clearly short, I made a comment where I was like, well, that's the refs handed, the Steelers the game. That was not literally. I mean, it was and it wasn't. You don't lose a game. And I've said this a lot, and I've called out fans a lot in our own fan base for saying, things like that, because you shouldn't lose a game by one play. Like, that's kind of on you. Like, if you couldn't play 4 quarters of football to where you need just one play, to win the game, and it goes poorly, like, it's a bummer and it shouldn't have happened and it ruins the integrity of the game, but maybe you should have executed earlier, which might sound harsh, but it's just the reality. You have to be, like, in football or organized sports. But I definitely was not happy with the way that game was officiated. I thought it was pretty bad. And I thought that there was also a couple of calls they missed on Rob Havenstein. He did hold.
I agree.
some Pittsburgh defenders.
A
So it
lot
went
of
both
holding they
ways.
missed. Yeah.
But the last play, obviously, when the
And
team,
JPJ with a lot of holding on Nakua. No, I
yeah.
agree. I mean, you can go back and forth, and it's a ref show. I mean, bottom line is you have to be better to not let them affect it. But at the same time, like, you can't really give the refs a pass either. I think they've been atrocious. And it's easy for us to say that. I mean, I get that with like umpires for the most part. We're picking them apart, and they've gotten 90% or 98% of the balls in strikes called correctly, and we're still like, we just want robots. I think this is a worse problem than baseball right now, because I think the eye in the sky needs to be used all the time. If it's that quickly that you can you can communicate that quickly that you miss a call, and then up top has a better view, and they're like, hey, you missed this call, overturn it. If you could do it that quickly, which they can, then it shouldn't be a 2-minute thing. It shouldn't be like, because essentially what you're saying is that, okay, hey guys, you guys can suck it up the whole game, and then in 2 minutes, that's when we care enough to review it. That's insane to me.
Well, I just think like in professional sports, now you have the ability to watch everything and see what really happened. You shouldn't have these stupid rules of, oh, well, you have to do X to watch the play. I mean, maybe they have them because the games would be longer. But if you have someone continuously monitoring it and saying, hey, that's actually wrong, he stepped out of bounds, hey, like, we're watching the tape, I don't think it's a big deal. And I don't think fans would mind the extra 5 to 10 seconds that it takes to, because there's a lot on the line in professional sports for multiple reasons, for the teams, for fans, for people who gamble. I mean, there's just so much on the line that it's like,
the Bijan Robinson thing is the first thing I thought of.
Oh
when you said
my
people who
God.
gamble.
I didn't have him in, like, I didn't
either, thank God.
Have him in any parlays or anything, but I saw people on the timeline being like, why the hell is Bijan Robinson dressed and not playing, and he's played one snap? And I was like, that's weird. I mean, yeah, that's just with the play calling or the camera. Yeah, I don't understand why that's not a thing. I think that's frustrating.
It's 2023, and the majority of the games are decided by old men who watch things and immediately are just like, oh, I think that's where the ball was.
Really
Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Like, literally, you have these old ass men that are like, let's put the ball here. And that decides the whole game. The whole game. Like, where they spot it.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And especially when you get refs who are repeatedly bad.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, I feel like, I don't know how they would gauge that, but you have a ref who's a part of multiple bad games where people are like, the play calling here, or sorry, not the play calling, like what word I'm totally blanking. The calling, the refereeing, the
officiating.
Officiating. Yes. Okay. The officiating is terrible. And then you end up looking back at the tape and you're like, oh yeah, it was terrible. Like XYZ was incorrectly called. That's when it's like, all right, I think that there needs to be more done about that. I mean, you can't just,
What are your thoughts on late flags? Don't you think they should be like, just, there has to be like a time limit? Like, you can't just be and they're just about to line up for the next play.
I don't
way
like
too
it.
late.
Well, I don't like it, but I have to give a little bit of grace because, like, do you ever know like times where you like see something and your brain is, maybe it's just me. You see something and your brain doesn't register it right away, and it takes you a couple seconds. Then you're like, oh, I just saw that.
But like,
I mean, if you're watching an NFL game, you should be in the zone. So I think that should not be a thing. But I'm just saying, maybe that's why it happens.
I mean, this is what I'll say. If a referee, or sorry, not a referee, if an announcer who announces a boxing match can play by play, a jab with the right hook and jab with the left hook, like, they're seeing it, right? They're saying it right there on the spot. It's pretty much they're the referee. Like, they're seeing it. They're in the same spot as the referee on the side. And they're sitting down, so they don't even have a great angle of it. And obviously they do have like TVs and stuff. And then you have hockey announcers, and they can pronounce all of these Latvian and Slovakian and all sorts of these names that are crazy and hard to pronounce. And they're doing this really quickly while everyone's passing the puck. And you have older guys doing it. And then these guys can't figure out while they're practically on the field, Alexis, they are like, he grabbed Aaron Donald by the throat, threw him to the ground. I don't think that was a hold because he threw him. I guess maybe if he held him up a little bit longer, I would have called it.
You know what we sound like to referees right now who are watching us clearly because I'm sure they watch our content. This is what we sound like. Wait. It's not doing it how. Yeah, there was, for the people who don't know, I did this last week, not live.
Yes.
Think of Kate Goslin. And if you're watching on YouTube, you know where I'm trying to go with this right now.
Oh my God. Yes.
It's not holding like it did last week. But yeah, we sound like Karen's complaining about, but like we aren't because we're actually factually backed up by what we're saying.
Yeah.
But anyway, I could go on. It gives me like I'm getting chest pains thinking about it. I don't like to think about how angry I was some of those calls last week. But all of this said, this was not the reason the Rams lost the game. We are not saying the Rams lost the game because of bad play calling or bad officiating. Why do I keep substituting?
Because the play calling was also bad.
Yes,
great segue.
Okay, that is because I looked at my notes for this game and I kept seeing play calling. So now I want to, and I just okay. Play calling is different than officiating, but let's talk about the play calling. So at the end of when I knew that we were in for another bad game of play calling was the end of the first half when we were like, we could have scored at the half and we were just basically we were like slow walking down the field. There was no urgency. And I tweeted something and I'm trying to pull it up, but I was like, what's going on here? Like the clock is running and we're just like taking our time. And that's when I was like, all right, this is going to be another one of those games where the clock management is abysmal and nobody asks McVay about it after the game. And we all just pretend like there was not a problem with clock management. So Jake, what were your thoughts on the clock management? Do you remember what I'm talking about when like
yes,
the clock was running and they just were like acting like they were in like a field of sunflowers, just like waltzing down the field. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like we have a chance to score before like the half. And you're acting like there's no urgency.
Yeah, no, I definitely see what you're saying. There were moments in the game like that. I mean, there wasn't anything like Monday Night Football. Did you see that?
No, I didn't watch the Monday Night Football game this week.
Okay, the Vikings defense lined up with 8 players.
Oh, I saw that. It feels like a Vikings-esque thing to do. And I don't dislike the Vikings, but
they won.
I laughed. No, they did win.
And I don't know. I think the 49ers called a timeout too. Like, I don't know what they were doing because 8 players. But no, I think Alexis in this game, the thing that bothered me the most was how predictable the Rams were. Their entire offense was, we're going to run the ball with Darrell Henderson and Royce Freeman. Shocker. We're going to run it 30 times and we're going to get good yardage on it. We're even going to score a touchdown on our only red zone appearance. But we're also going to throw the ball way down the field. And it's either going to be Puka Nacua or death. And that's the thing. So Puka Nacua caught 8 of 12 for 154 yards. The next leading receiver, Tutu Atwell, who caught a pass that wasn't even intended for him and scored a touchdown. Then you had Cooper Kupp, who dropped 2 right away. By the way, bad omen. Saw Cooper Kupp drop 2 to start the game, and then they panned over to Craig Rolstad, and I was like, "Oh, this game is so done." The
energy was just off. Yeah, the energy. Like I felt like I was like, I need to perform some rituals or something, and I didn't do it. But I was like, we need to get out the sage. I need to, say some rituals. I need to cleanse. Maybe I need to go shower. I started doing that the year we won the Super Bowl, I would literally take showers, guys, at halftime if the vibes were off. Do
Oh,
you remember
wow.
that? It was only
Yes.
towards the end of the season, and we ended up winning a Super Bowl. So maybe I need to bring it back. But like, there was just a lot of like bad energy with this game when it started.
Bad voodoo. Yeah.
It just felt off. Like the calls right away were off. Like you said, Cooper Kupp dropping a couple passes. The offense just looked.
The
And
run game looked good.
the run
That's
game
the
looked
crazy
good.
thing.
The right side of the offensive line was
Oh, they were
great.
kicking ass. Kevin Dotson's like,
yeah,
you guys traded me? You traded me? I'm better than every single one of you guys. And
exactly.
he was going out there and he was taking ass and kicking names, as they say.
Yeah, he was doing well. Havenstein was doing well. He did hold quite a few, but they didn't call it.
Yeah.
So
No,
hey, we'll
that's
take
true.
what we can get. But yeah, the run game looked good, but the passing game just looked very like you mentioned earlier, there was just no creativity. I felt like we were watching the same plays over and over and over, and it was like they would line up and you knew it wasn't going to work. And I was like, what is this offense like doing? And I don't know why that was the case, because it wasn't like, I mean, you have TJ Watt, you have Alex Highsmith. So that was going to be a problem. But other than that, it didn't seem like we were just getting obliterated by this Pittsburgh defense. I mean, we've talked about, we dominated the first 3 quarters of the game. So it wasn't like it just was like a lost cause from the beginning. So that was frustrating to watch. I don't know what the plan is to fix that. I think it has to be play calling, because you have the talent on the field. So
Oh my God, do they ever? They have so much talent. Like we have, do you know how many times they get jokes like, hey, why don't you trade us Puka Nakua? Ha ha. And I'm like, nope.
I have a lot of Rams on my fantasy teams this year.
I mean, this is probably, it's weird, right? Because Nakua goes for 8 for 154 and they score 17. And how many explosives did they have? I mean, you had the explosive run by Henderson, 16 yards, an explosive Royce Freeman run for 15. You had an explosive 36 from Puka. He had, I think, another 20 and another 20 after that. Tutu had a 31 explosive, and then Cooper had 24 explosive. All these explosive plays, and you come away with 17 points. You're averaging 22.1 per game this year. The only thing that's separating this team from last year's offense, because it's the same story. Defense keeps them in games. Defense loses them the game because they eventually can't stop them because they've been on the field the whole time. And the offense continues to sputter. The difference is last year there were a lot of injuries. The difference is last year's they didn't have the explosives. But this offense, we saw the first 4 weeks since Cooper Kupp has come back. Alexis, I hope I don't get shot for this, but they're worse. They're worse with Cooper Kupp.
I wonder if they're just, I think McVay is overthinking it.
Oh,
I think that he, like, and we've talked about this, and I feel like we talk about it every season, but I feel like he overthinks it.
Everything.
And then the remedy to overthinking it is like, so he starts off really pass happy.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if that doesn't work, it just shuts down. I feel like the passing game just shuts down. It's almost like can we just, maybe we should build up to it. Maybe we don't need to just try to do only the big plays, because I feel like they're not running a lot of the effective plays. I feel like they're running plays that are either going to be really cool, or like the big play, the big shot, or they don't do anything. I am glad that they're running the ball more. I was very happy.
Yeah.
I was worried going against, well, Pittsburgh has a bad run defense statistically.
Yes,
so we talked about that. We talked about that in the preview. So that made me a little hopeful, but I still was worried, because I was like, I didn't think they were going to put that much pressure on Henderson and Freeman right away. And I was wrong, because I was like, and that has nothing to do with Henderson or Freeman. I just was like, it's their first game, here, whatever, at least Henderson's, Freeman's called up. Like, it's just probably not going to be a game that they're going to throw them into the fire. And they ended up doing it, and it worked.
Yeah.
But then they couldn't make up for it in the passing game. They just.
And, going back to that last drive, 7 minutes, 20 seconds left on the clock. You're around the 43-yard line, So you got good field position. You get 2 straight runs. This is after the 2 straight runs for Freeman to go for 13. Pass, 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 punt. This is the problem. And look, I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Brett Maher was just a scapegoat. He wasn't the issue. The issue is Sean McVay has not been good enough when you get past the 50. And that's why they keep settling for these long field goals. It's why Maher's attempted 7 50-plus yard field goals. That I think that leads the league. If not, it's very close to it. And he's kicked more field goals than anybody in the league. The Rams are too good to be settling for field goals. Let's be honest here. Their passing offense in the red zone has been really wonky. That's why Tutu Atwell leads them in receiving touchdowns. It's been weird. Like, doesn't it feel like it's been weird this year? It's not that it's like Stafford's fault, but some of the plays that they've called, like I thought they called better plays with like Allen Robinson last year. You know, I don't even know.
They're overthinking.
Like
much. He's trying to do too much. He's overthinking it. And it just, because of that, it's like he's making it awkward.
Yes. Like, and well, I like that they ran it with Henderson too, because it was going back to what they did in week 1 and, you know, how they had the success with Kyren Williams. Like they were just like, all right, pound the rock when you get in the red zone. That's what they need to do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was frustrating to watch. And again, it wasn't like Pittsburgh. I don't feel like Pittsburgh outplayed us. They got 3 touchdowns and they all were rushing touchdowns. You had the quarterback sneak, and then you had a touchdown by Najee Harris and one by Jaylen Warren. Their leading receiver was George Pickens with 107 yards, 5 catches. And Witherspoon did a really good job, but I know some people were like, George Pickens isn't going to catch a ball on Witherspoon, and they got mad when I said he would, and he did. He put up 107 yards and had 5 receptions. So maybe people should start paying attention to George Pickens more. But Deontay Johnson, Jake,
he was the catalyst.
Who's been on our show, if people aren't aware, we interviewed him when he was getting drafted out of Toledo. And he has been kind of like, he's their veteran receiver, which makes me feel old. And he's not even that old. He's been on the team for 4 seasons, but like he's kind of right now like their veteran-esque, other than Allen Robinson. So actually, never mind. But Deontay Johnson's been there the longest, and he was questionable. We didn't really know if he was going to play or not on Sunday. So he ended up being healthy, and I think he really helps out that Pittsburgh receiving core. So between him and Pickens, I mean, Johnson himself put up 79 yards, so it's not like he had a quiet game by any means.
The 39-yard explosive was honestly kind of the gut punch at that point, I would say. And I'll go further. Johnson, I think most of his yards were in the fourth quarter. And, you know, I think a lot of that came down to that zone coverage where, look, like, you know, Darian Kendrick played really well throughout this game, but you cannot undercut that route. You cannot undercut that route there. You have to know where you are on the field. And I just want to give a shout out here to Ahkello Witherspoon, because I think there are a lot of people that don't know what they're watching, whether it's film or you're rewatching the game and they're saying, oh, we got cooked. Let me just break this down for you so you understand what you're watching in case you think Ahkello Witherspoon got cooked. Because I keep hearing like, oh, he gets burned. You don't know what you're watching. Ahkello Witherspoon, what he likes to do is he plays from the trail. So what I mean by that is he's willing to give the receiver a step on him on purpose. He's not getting cooked, okay? You just don't know what you're watching, so I'm going to explain it. So Ahkello is playing from the trail. The reason he could do that is because he's 6'4". Another reason he could do that is because he ran a 4.4. The guy is an elite athlete. So he plays from the trail. But Jake, what about the play where Pickens, like if he gets his feet in bounds, he uses the sideline? So that's why that's happened now back-to-back weeks. He didn't get burned. What he does is he uses the sideline so well. He leverages the receiver, and he makes it so it's incredibly difficult to get his 2 feet in bounds, and it's not going to happen. And that's where he's like, you know, you might say at home, well, he almost gave up a touchdown. But he's thinking, I forced an incomplete pass. I did my job, and he did. And we look back at it, the week prior, Marquise Brown, that was a tough matchup, basically locked on with him. He was great. He only gave up 1 catch on 4 targets. Look, Akella Witherspoon has been the best. This is the best corner play I think I've seen from a Rams corner. Period. Like, this is better than what we saw from Ramsey. Now, Ramsey, to be fair, was asked to do a little bit different by playing that star role. But Akella, what people don't know is watching the tape, Akella was left frequently on his own on an island against Pittsburgh. They don't do that with their corners. They have gotten so comfortable with Akella that they're very rarely giving him help over the top. And what that does now is, because they feel that comfortable he can work one-on-one, they can now deploy that safety somewhere else on the field, whether that's giving Darian Kendrick help, whether that's, adding a free blitzer. We saw that. We saw the way Raheem Morris was able to draw up that Russ East blitz, the combo blitz with him and Christian Roseboom. How do you think those happen? They happen when you feel comfortable enough to leave a corner on his own. And that is what the great value of Akella Witherspoon, what he has provided, has allowed Raheem Morris to start getting creative with his safety blitzes.
Yeah, I think Witherspoon is, in this league, there's so many people that get overlooked because they're not the loudest, they're not the flashiest, they're not, involved in the biggest players or whatever. So when they say silent hero, that's Witherspoon. And yes. I think it's been invaluable what he's added to this Rams secondary, as you and I have talked about. But Jake, just to wrap up this game against the Steelers, before we talk about our matchup against the Cowboys, what do you think? And this is a good transition. What did we do or not do against the Steelers that we need to fix before going into next week? Like, what is your biggest takeaway from this game?
Well, I thought the pass protection was as good as it's going to get going up against TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. One thing the Rams didn't do that they need to do against this defense, with Parsons, with Lawrence, with Dorrance Armstrong out of Kansas, have to point that out. Osa Odighizuwa, or whatever the hell his name is, he's a freak. They have a bunch of pass rushers that they can deploy all over. They move Parsons everywhere. They are a problem. What you need to do is not only run the football, because you can't rush the passer if the team keeps running the football. That's why last 3 weeks, Dallas is now seeing an average of 29 carries against them per game. So there's been a spike. Teams are starting to do that. It's how James Conner and the Cardinals were able to win. They ran the football. But also, think about this, the short passing attack. The Rams don't do it enough. I don't know why Stafford's had a hard time throwing the ball. He needs to work on that. He needs to get that out. And I'll say this, we haven't talked about, it's been 32 minutes of the show, and we haven't brought up the fact that, look, Stafford's not healthy. He hasn't been healthy since the Colts game. It's clear and obvious that hip is bothering him. I've been told it's bothering him. Kelly Stafford said on her podcast it's bothering him. So at this point in time, if the hip is bothering you enough where you don't feel like you can orchestrate play action, you don't want him lining up under center, Alexis, that's why we're seeing a lot more pistol formations, right? If it's gotten to that point, why are you making him drop back 5-step drops and throw 20, 30 yards down the field with no security blanket or safety outlet anywhere in sight? That was a big reason why they lost against the Steelers, because a lot of those throws sailed over guys' heads, because now Stafford's not 100%. I just mentioned it. So there'll be times where, yes, he'll make the incredible throw, but he missed some throws, right? It's fair to admit that. I thought that was the worst game of the season for him. And it doesn't help when he's missing throws. And now you talk about the pressure getting there. You have, Nick Herbig, who had a sack, and, guys like that, obviously Watt and Highsmith, and, as well as the interior there with, Ogunjobi. But here's the problem. You have nobody there. When you watch the tape, it's Stafford in a pocket that's collapsing, Alexis. And there's a reason why all of a sudden this guy has to go and take off and run. It's like, why is Stafford running? Why does it make sense every single week? And you can make actual, there's a lucrative potential here to make money betting on Stafford rushing props. And it's because And it's because Sean McVay leaves him on an island. I'm not talking about an island corner. I'm not talking about a receiver, a one-on-one. No, I'm talking about a quarterback that's all alone. There's no check down. There's nobody in the flat. And when there is, Stafford has gotten so used to just throwing deep down the field, he doesn't even look at him. They need to use the short passing attack if they want to beat the Dallas Cowboys. Whether that's bubble screens to Tutu Atwell, please no more Puka Nacua. Tutu Atwell has 2 catches for 13 yards in the bubble screen game. Puka Nacua has 7 for 13. There were people in my comments section on a video that I posted about this, what happened with the Rams offense. People were in my comment section were saying I'm a Puka Nacua hater now. No. Focus on what he does best. He's not best in the screen game. Puka Nacua doesn't have 0 to 60 rock and roller coaster type speed. I can't stress that enough. He does not. He has build-up speed. He takes time. So if you get him over the middle on a quick slant, that's when he's effective. Over the top, things like that. Tutu Atwell, on the other hand, 0 to 60. Get him the football. Get Darrell Henderson the football in the receiving game. If you can get Royce Freeman, that would be great. And if you can get Myles Gaskin involved, that would be great as well. This is the week. If there was any week to use the screen game, receivers and running backs, this is the week. Alexis, I hate bubble screens, but I have to break it to you. This offense has not been the same since they lost Robert Woods, who was a king in the bubble screen game. And they also aren't using enough creative runs. And what I mean by that, no jet sweeps, no end arounds, no reverses. Bring those back. Get creative. Stop being one-dimensional. You can't have games where Puka Nacua has 154 of your 231 yards. Now everyone's just going to key in on Puka Nacua when the game gets tight. That's what happened. Stop it.
I agree.
I could go on, but we'll stop
well, you said everything I was planning on saying, so I won't repeat it. Instead, I'm going to pivot. So this episode pivot. It's funny because and this is actually legit because you and I were talking about improv before this when we were catching up. Quite literally, there was a scene at my improv where someone was moving a table, not a couch, and they were desperately trying to not yell pivot because we were all thinking it, but they obviously weren't like not going to steal lines from a TV show. But someone in the audience screamed pivot. And but that's funny that you brought that up. But anyways, okay, looking at this Dallas Cowboys game, Jake, coming up on Sunday. It's in Dallas. The Cowboys, and you and I have talked about this before, are like they're a very weird team this season. I think that's the word that we would both agree to be used. I think that they're overhyped. Quite frankly, I think that you do too. They've had kind of an up and down, season. They started off the season where they obliterated the Giants. We all saw that on Sunday Night Football, 40-0. Then they end up beating the Jets. They lose to the Cardinals, who are arguably the worst team in football right now. One of them. They did lose to the Cardinals barely, but they lost. Blow out the Patriots, get blown out by the 49ers, barely beat the Chargers next week, and now they're playing us. So it's like the Cowboys are one of those teams where it's like, sadly, I don't want to say like the Rams, but they show up against good teams, and then they kind of downplay when they're playing like a team like the Cardinals, or like.
I agree.
They ended up beating the Chargers, but I don't think they played that well. I think that game was kind of just whatever. I mean, they're weird, and it's like I don't want to diss on the Cowboys because that's what everybody wants to do. And I don't like the Cowboys. I've been pretty open about that for my whole life. I'm not a very big Cowboys fan. Not part of Dem Boys, is what they call themselves still. We Dem Boys. just whatever. Like, I'm just not into it, but I feel bad because I do want to give credit where credit's due. They have some talented playmakers on their team. I think Dak had a moment and has moments where he's very good. I do think that it's a little overrated at this point, and I know people are going to come for me. A lot of people like Dak Prescott. I like Dak Prescott. I'm not hating on him. I'm just, when I watch the Cowboys offense, I don't get the hype that everybody else seems to have. Like they don't have, like they have CeeDee Lamb and Tony Pollard. There was a lot of hype on him coming into the season, and
Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup. I mean,
yeah, like they're okay.
elite offensive line.
They do have a good offensive line. They've
Yeah,
always,
maybe
that's
it's not
kind of like
elite. It's very good though.
they that's like their trademark. Like, you know how every team has like a staple? Like the Cowboys just have good offensive line. They just, it's
The
just what they
defense
do.
wasn't, because Tony Romo's probably sitting at home like, man, I never got a defense like this. Everyone just
That's
would blame
true.
me when I threw a pick after throwing 7 touchdowns.
Well, looking at this Cowboys team playing the Rams, like I said, they played Monday Night Football last week against the Chargers. That game they barely ended up winning by 3 points. What do you think needs to be the point of emphasis for the Rams to win this game? Because I am concerned a little bit about Micah Parsons.
Yes.
I'm a little concerned about the Cowboys secondary. So for me, I would say the Rams offense is going to have to make some changes. They are going to have to figure out how to have the passing game be effective and run the ball against, in my opinion, a good defense. So would you agree with me, or would you say there's something else that should be the number one point of emphasis for this team?
Well, I mean, you got to run the ball. No one wants to admit it because, you see Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, everyone likes betting on this team. Everyone has some share in this team in fantasy football. You like points. You like Stafford. It doesn't matter who it is. They need to run the football. Okay. Sean McVay is more likely to abandon the run than abandon the pass. So start off, run the football, set the tone, and then it opens up the rest of your playbook. If you're only throwing the ball, and the way they've been throwing the ball, it has not been great. Stafford, by the way, is below 60% completion now on the season. So it has not been great. He's not fully healthy. Make it easier on him. That's the thing, is like, you could say what you will. Josh Dobbs has had a valiant effort this year as the fill-in quarterback for the Cardinals. But if you don't think that the Cardinals were worried about Josh Dobbs, I mean, you don't know what you're talking about in that Dallas game, because they do not win that game without running the ball with James Conner. Okay, that's really what kept them in that game, and then ultimately allowed them to take over. And what it did is it opened up opportunities later in the game for Josh Dobbs. And so I think that's kind of what you have to look at. Now, the great thing about Stafford is if you game manager him, he can still make those throws late in the game. So if you keep him in the game and allow him to go and win it, he can do that. We saw that against the Colts. We saw him limping. He had to be carried off the field by his own teammates. He had to be picked up off the ground, not even in a way like where, hey, I grab your hand, you grab mine, I lift you. No, I mean, at one point he was lifted off the ground. It was not good, but he was able to, keep it together. And when push came to shove, he went 75 yards down the field in overtime and beat the Colts. He can do that. What he can't do is drop back 40 times on this hip and have that go up against a Micah Parsons, the DeMarcus Lawrence, the Dorrance Armstrong, and Osa Adigizoa or whatever.
I just call him Osa.
I'm probably just going to do that now. I thought I was going to make work, but it sounds too much like Ho-Oh.
You know me and
like the
last
Pokemon
names. Yeah, I'm not good at last names at all. So Osa is just so easy to say. And I don't think he would mind. I think he'd forgive me.
I mean, I call Lamar Jackson Lamar, and it's not like Jackson's a hard thing to say. It's just he's Lamar. I mean, that's what it is. But no, going back to that game though with the Cardinals, I think this is how you can win. James Conner had 14 carries for 98 yards and a touchdown. Quite honestly, they didn't run it with him enough. But what it did is eventually now Josh Dobbs, Rondale Moore, they both had a 40-yard run. Okay. I want to see Tutu Atwell reverses. I want to see just some crazy stuff out there. You know who's good in the jet sweep, reverse, end around game that you would never expect?
Oh,
no.
in this
Ben
game?
Skoranek.
Oh, yeah.
I went through, Alexis, on one of my recent videos. I went through all history of Sean McVay and every single jet sweep he's ever done, end around, reverse. To break it down, for those of you who don't know at home, reverses are when you go to the opposite side of the field, doesn't have any sort of pre-snap, so forth. End arounds are when the ball is snapped and then you move. No pre-snap motion. Jet sweep is when you see the pre-snap motion coming across the center and the quarterback, and they get the direct handoff. That is a jet motion. So this is the thing, is that they don't run them as much as they used to. And I think this is something that's missing in their arsenal. Robert Woods used to gash teams with this. And I mean, I have them all right here, going back to their best season. The season they averaged, I think, was 32.9 points per game. The best offense in the Sean McVay era, 2018, 32 jet sweeps, 1 end around, 1 reverse. We're going into week 8 here, Alexis, and they've had 2 jet sweeps and 3 end arounds, 0 reverses. Mind you, 2 of those have gone to Tutu Atwell for 27 yards. And the last time we saw it was against the Cincinnati Bengals after they took away that touchdown. So here's the deal. I think they need to utilize that more. And I think when you go back and you look, Ben Skoranek has been pretty good in that realm. He has one jet sweep to the right, which came last year against the Falcons. I believe it was the Falcons, for a touchdown, 17-yard touchdown. And then he has another to the left for 11 yards this year. Let's get Ben Skoranek involved. Let's get Tutu Atwell involved. I almost said Tavon Austin. I'm sorry. I've been looking at a lot of Tavon Austin lately because of all this stuff. So the point is, be creative. Find ways to get those explosive plays. Dallas, in that one Cardinal game alone, gave up a 26-yard run to James Conner, a 44-yard run to Josh Dobbs, and a 45-yard run to Rondale Moore, while also giving up a 23-yard catch to Marquise Brown and a 69-yard catch to Michael Wilson, the rookie. This team gives up the big play, and Trayvon Diggs is out. So he's not walking through there anytime soon. They got some guys that are very talented. Don't get me wrong. I really like Deron Bland. I'm scared to death of Stephon Gilmore. Any Rams fan should be. He's the one that ended the Super Bowl game with the Jared Goff interception to Brandon Cooks. Ironically, they're on the same team now. But, you know, Alexis, they have to be able, at least in my opinion, they have to be able to get the ground game going, but they also have to be able to build on those explosive plays because the Rams consistently have them. It's a matter of scoring touchdowns.
Let's get creative, guys. Let's all get together. I think the Rams, they need to just get together, have a sharing circle, share some ideas, get their creative juices flowing, journal. Like, let's figure it out. Like, let's find some ways to get the offense flowing. Like you said, like, it's just so stagnant. It's like there's no life, there's no creativity. I like the idea of bringing Ben Skoranek in. I mean, Ben Skoranek's wide receiver 4. I know a lot of people are like, where's Ben Skoranek? It's like, well, he is. I mean, it's not Demarcus Robinson, who's been healthy scratched before. I mean, you've got Kupp, Nakua, Atwell, Skoranek. So use him. You know, use some of the rest of our receivers too. Like, let's find ways to get more people involved. But like you said, regardless of all that, I think they need to run the ball. I think you need Henderson and Freeman to do exactly what they did against the Steelers, except you need them to do it more. You need to establish a rhythm. I feel like one of the things with the Rams is they never establish a rhythm in the run game, which is really important. It's so not only do they not run it enough, when they do run it, there's like, it's so hot and cold that it's never as effective, I think, as it could be. So we'll see. We'll talk about what we think is going to happen in the game later. But defensively, Jake, looking at the Rams defense going against like Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, Tony Pollard, who else? Jake Ferguson, who I like because he's won me money on my tight end props. As you know, I love making bets on tight ends. Love it. What do you think the Rams need to do? What do you expect is going to be the Cowboys' first emphasis of attack? Do you think they're going to lean on Tony Pollard and I'm forgetting their other running back's name right now. Starts with an E. It's not Deuce Vaughn, although they are starting to use Deuce Vaughn, I think, a little more lately. But anyways, run game, do you think that's where they go? Or do you think they rely on guys like CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Brandon Cooks to make big plays in the passing game?
I think, well, they're definitely going to try to get Tony Pollard working. Because I think the key is you want to make this Rams team tackle on the edges, on the outside, force these guys to have to make tackles. This has been a big thing for the Rams. They've struggled, but I also think we're going to see a lot of Dak Prescott running the ball. I think we're going to see him moving around. We've already seen it. We saw with Jalen Hurts, Josh Dobbs, Anthony Richardson, what they can do. We saw what happens when the mobile quarterback doesn't get anything going in the run game. That's Geno Smith. But Dak can move. And, I don't think he moves as well as he first did when he came in the league, but he could still move. And, I think we could see some design quarterback runs, but I think the thing that will make them so dangerous is that they can get him on the run. And if the Rams are playing either man or they're playing match zone, there's not going to be anybody there to stop him. The Rams don't use a spy on the quarterback. And if they didn't use it against Anthony Richardson, if they didn't use it against Josh Dobbs, and they didn't use it against Jalen Hurts, they ain't using it against Dak Prescott. And so I think in this one, Dallas is going to want to run the ball with Prescott. They're going to want to get him on the move. They're going to really challenge this pass rush, I think. When you look at the offensive line, Tyron Smith, Tyler Smith, you got Tyler Biotish, you got Zach Martin, and, of course, Terrence Steele, who signed a ridiculously large contract. This is a very, very good offensive line. And I'll tell you this, I hate to say it, but Byron Young is coming off his worst performance of the year last week. I think he only had a 5.8 win rate. That's not good. And that was an easier matchup at left tackle. So he's got to step up this week. One thing I want to point out, I was watching Mike Tomlin, and he had mentioned how they weren't expecting, them to bring some of the pressures they did. Well, what he's talking about is that Michael Hoyt, funny enough, normally drops into coverage. And last week, Raheem Morris made an adjustment where the Steelers had those structures where they thought, okay, he's going to drop in coverage. We got it. And you saw early on the pressure got to Pickett, and he got 2 sacks. And both of those were because the Steelers thought he was going to drop into coverage. So that's a way to use kind of your vices against you, or for you, if you will. They've already put so much tape on Michael Hoyt dropping in coverage out there that now teams are going to have to always think about that. And I think that's somewhat of an advantage because he's still a good rusher. He can still get to the quarterback. He can still win one-on-one. And I just thought that was a really cool little detail. I think if Akello, I don't know if they'll do it, Alexis, but I think they really should consider, having Akello shadow Lamb. Akello, for the most part, predominantly plays on the left side. But the right receiver side, the left cornerback. But we saw him last week. I mean, the last play of the game, essentially, he's on the right side. Huge opportunity there against Deontay Johnson. Actually, shut him down. They called the flag, but I think that's kind of a big deal. And I think because of his ability to move around, because of his ability to be on an island, I think you can get creative here, have him shadow Lamb. And then at that point, I mean, are you putting Durant on Cooks? Are you putting, Kendrick on Gallup? I mean, that is to be decided. I think Durant would be on Cooks, and probably have a lot of help over the top because you just don't want to give up the explosive. And that's going to be a big emphasis, I think, from Raheem Morris to avoid giving up the big explosive plays to Lamb, to Cooks, etc. But yeah, I think when you look at this offense, they're going to try to win with the run. Prescott, I think they can get an explosive play or two. They can get it to CeeDee Lamb. That's why I think the Rams need to keep Witherspoon on him at all times. And I think Pollard is really the key to victory. We've seen Pollard go off against the Rams in the past. The Rams did play the Cowboys last year. They had every opportunity to win that game. Big issue is when they ran it, it was Cam Akers, and that was the game where people started turning on him. This is a game going into it. The Rams are running well. By the way, they're sixth the last 3 games in the league. They are sixth in the league in yards per carry average. So a lot of success the recent weeks. I don't think it's a shock. I don't think it's surprising when you consider Kevin Dotson gets inserted into the lineup and immediately they can run the ball better. Just saying, I don't think that just happens, but I think they're really going to have to, stick with the run, Alexis. And I think, of course, on the Cowboys side, I think that's what they're going to try to do as well, whether that's with Prescott, whether that's with Pollard, maybe giving him different looks, some options, some read options, RPOs, things like that, just to keep them on their toes. I think that's what Dallas is going to have to do with that offense to try and win this game against this Rams defense.
Yeah, I imagine that Dallas is going to do what we want the Rams to do, and that is get creative. I think that they have the ability to do that. I think that's what they're going to try to do to, beat this bend don't break offense. I think CeeDee Lamb is obviously I think they're going to try to get Tony Pollard involved. I think they would like to probably win the game with Tony Pollard, but I would watch out for CeeDee Lamb. I think he is going to bring a lot of life to this Dallas Cowboys offense, and I think he is who Dak Prescott, when they're passing the ball, he's going to look at him the most. But our old friend Brandon Cooks, I mean, he's still having kind of a solid year, and it feels like he was on the Rams so long ago. It really wasn't that long ago, but it just is going to be kind of bittersweet, obviously, to see him. I think this is is this the first game he's played against the Rams since he's been a Ram? Because I don't remember.
I don't think so. I think the Texans game, he was probably on the Texans.
That would make sense.
It shouldn't be. I'd be shocked if it is, but
I didn't look it up. But it is just But watch out for him. Watch out for Michael Gallup. I think that the Rams have the ability to do a very decent job shutting down Dallas's passing game. As soon as I said that, I got a little twinge in my chest of nervousness. But I really do think that they, like I said, it's not a dramatic or anything special. Like when you watch the Cowboys, I think if the Rams just do what they've been doing and can be a little bit better at the line of scrimmage, maybe slightly more aggressive in the secondary, I think that then you can force Dallas to run the ball. And then it's hit or miss. Who's going to win, Tony Pollard or the Rams defense in front? I'm not sure, but you did a pretty good job of explaining what I think is going to happen. But that, I'm on the same page with you there. So let's go to our game predictions. I'll go first. I'm going to, maybe I'm regretting. Okay, I'll go first because I kind of want to change mine now, but I'll stick to what I originally had. I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see a Puka Nacua touchdown. I really do think they're going to force feed Puka this game. I know we talked about how they shouldn't do that and how they should diversify it, but just realistically, I think I think he's going to lead the team in receiving yards again. I think he's going to get a touchdown against the Cowboys. I'm just feeling a Puka touchdown because he's been making these really great plays. You talk about the catches he's made the past couple of weeks, but then he's not getting the really awesome touchdown. I think that's going to happen this week. So I think we're going to see a Puka Nacua touchdown. I think we're also going to see a Darrell Henderson and Royce Freeman touchdown.
Oh wow, we got 3 touchdowns already.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think that those are the 3 that we'll get to my score prediction, but I think we're going to see each running back get a touchdown. Because I think, and I can only hope, that McVay is what really works for us in the red zone? Running the ball, and he'll do it again. So Puka Nacua touchdown. Each of our running backs is going to get a touchdown. On the defensive side, no sack prediction this week. I do like this offensive line for Dallas. I'm not saying we won't get a sack, but I don't really want to make a prediction on it because I won't be shocked if we really struggle to get to the quarterback. I mean, we already struggled to get to the quarterback. So I think that's not going to be a good week for this. But I will say Dak and interceptions is, if you want to take a prop,
I
that's usually
mean,
a safe
like
one. But
against
I,
this defense, though, that's the only issue.
I think Witherspoon's going to get an interception. I
He
really do.
needs to, and I just want to just butt in here real quick. The reason why it's so tough is because he's playing the kind of shutdown role. And so if he's going to be on an island like that, he can't go and make those, like it needs to be thrown poorly, right? He can't go and make that crazy play if he's being asked to be that shutdown on an island corner. So that's the drawback there, because he's by far their best, opportunity to do that. So that means it's time, man. It is time for Jacoby Durant from last season to wake the F up and come away with an interception. I think we saw some things. The light bulb might have gone on the last couple weeks. This guy, I don't want to speak for you, but I thought he was going to be a superstar. Like after seeing him last season, I thought he was a rising star. And I just don't feel like we've seen that, but I know he's capable of it. This has to be the week where he gets one on Dak.
Yeah, it would be nice to see him kind of have a statement game, because he's kind of fallen into the shadows a little bit. I think people hype themselves up naturally a lot after, last season. And they just haven't seen the same spark from him, and I think he's gotten overshadowed. So I like to see it too. But let's talk about the score, and I'll let you go first since I did predictions first. What do you think the score is going to be in Dallas this Sunday, Jake?
Do you want me to go predictions first, or
Oh,
just are
that's
we
what I
doing
meant.
flip flop?
Yeah, go predictions. Sorry,
Okay, all right, all
I
right.
out talking mid sentence.
No, you're fine. I think this is going to be a game where the Rams are able to establish the run. I think Henderson, anytime touchdown scorer, lock it in again. We're gonna go 2 for 2, back-to-back weeks.
Hey, take the bet. I'm going to take
Yeah,
that.
I mean, you felt good about it last week,
I
right?
took it last week too. Yeah, I put them in a parlay, which
y-
you follow me. I hit a very large parlay on
very
Sunday,
large,
and
not
it
not
came
suitable for work. How much money you made?
Yeah, I put, and he was the last one too. Like everyone else had hit. It was an anytime touchdown parlay, and it was Henderson was the last one. And was like, the way that the game started, and then started to did the Rams decline? I was like, oh god, this is not going to hit, is it? And it did. Anyways,
Yeah.
this is not about me. Continue.
No, I'm just gonna say anytime touchdown for sure for him. I think he and Royce go over their over yards prop, which I don't think is out yet. If you're a better, I'm gonna say 41.5 will probably be Henderson's, and 39.5 will be Royce's. I would take them both over. Look, Dallas has not allowed a ton of yards on the ground, and I understand that scares people away. Austin Eckler, 14 carries for 27 yards. Austin Eckler has not been the same running back since coming back from injury. I don't think he's fully acclimated to the NFL speed right now and just the game. And so I'm not expecting him to go off. He hasn't really done much since coming back. So I don't think that's a healthy barometer. So I think those things are going to happen. I too also believe Puka Nacua has a good game in this. I think the explosives are big. With the Cowboys, they allow a lot of them. We just talked about it. The Wilson, the Connor, Dobbs, Rondell Moore, a guy that breaks tackles like crazy after the catch is going to have success against this defense. And that's Puka Nacua. But I think this is Tutu Atwell finally coming back, floating up to the surface, finally showing up. Last week, 1 catch, 31 yards, wasn't even targeted. He went up and grabbed the ball out of the air and scored a touchdown right before half. I think Tutu Atwell goes off in this game. I think they're going to use him in the receiving game, both the short area, but also the intermediate and deep. Stafford has 140, I think it was like 144 passer rating when targeting Puka, or not Puka, Tutu Atwell deep down the field. So, I'm hoping for that, but I think that's what's going to happen. And I'm just going to roll with it. Why not? Kobe Durant interception. I think, kind of seals the deal. I think that's something overdue. This defense isn't getting a lot of turnovers, and the way it works is really you don't get a lot, and then all of a sudden you get a ton and they start coming in bunches. And I think against Dak Prescott, who is guaranteed to throw at least one turnover worthy pass every game. That's not me hating. That's just, it's out there. Those are true stats. I think he'll get one in this game.
We'd love to see it. Now, Jake, what I was telling you earlier, now your score prediction.
I'm going 27-20 Rams. I don't know if it's going to be Lucas Haversick, the new kicker, or Mason Crosby, who they worked out, or whoever, but I think they're going to hit 2 of their field goals. I think they're going to be closer. They're not going to be just 50-yarders. But I think the Rams score 3 touchdowns in this game as well as you. I was just kind of setting the stage. I think that Henderson goes for a touchdown. The rest, I don't really care. I think it could be Nakua. I think it could be Atwell. I think Henderson gets one, though. Maybe even Freeman gets one. But the reason why I think they're going to win this game 27-20 is that I just think if you were worried about this team going up against this Cowboys team, first off, they struggled during the 1 p.m. games. I had my friend Jay Tuck on another show, and he's been covering the Dallas Cowboys, and he said when he saw it was a 1 p.m. Eastern time game, he was like, oh no, like they have not been great in those. So that's the first thing. Second thing is they're coming off a bye. We can look at that for what it is, but the Steelers looked rusty coming off their bye. And if the Rams just played their game and stopped shooting themselves in the foot, they would have won that game. There's no reason why the Cowboys won't come out rusty, right? I mean, they could come out fresh and they could throw all over the field and whatnot, but we haven't really seen that from the Cowboys. This has been kind of an underachieving, offense. And to be fair, they did give up 5 sacks on Dak Prescott the last time that they were out there. I believe it was on Sunday Night Football against the Chargers. And I think the Rams have a shot to get to Dak. I think they can pressure him. I think they can do a nice job against the run. I don't really feel like anybody goes off against the Rams in the run game. I know you have some big moments late in the game, but I don't really see anybody going off. The thing is going to be stopping Pollard in the short passing attack. But I also think the main thing is playing mistake-free football. Run the ball, play mistake-free football, force Dak into a turnover, and I would be shocked if you lost a game that went by that script.
So, sorry, can you repeat the score before I say mine?
27-20 Rams.
27-20. So I have 24-21 Rams. So close game. Like I said, I gave my predictions earlier about the 2 rushing touchdowns and the receiving touchdown. I just feel like, the Cowboys are just so kind of unpredictable, but I do think that their defense might hold strong for the most part. I'm really expecting this to be another one of the games where our defense bails us out. I think Lamb is sneaky good. I think Pollard, they're going to run a lot. And it might just wear the defense down. So I think it's going to come down to a field goal. I think the Rams are going to have like redemption somehow. I don't know who's going to be kicking it, but we're going to win late in the 4th quarter off of a field goal. And that's my prediction. I feel like this game might be very excruciating to watch. And what I mean by that is I think it's going to be very close. I don't think either team is going to really impress. I think, you're putting points on the board, but I think it's going to be frustrating. I do think, like I said, I think the Cowboys are a little bit overhyped, but I do think, the Rams have a lot that they need to figure out right now. And it might end up going very poorly. We might be totally wrong, but I think that they're going to hang in there. I think they're going to win a tough battle late in the 4th quarter, and the Rams are going to win. So it sounds like we're both on the same page. We think the Rams are going to win, and fingers crossed, because we said that last week and didn't go our way. So
the issue has been stringing together wins for McVay, but I feel like when he comes off a loss, he has them in the right mindset. The team comes out with a fire lit under them. And I kind of feel like that just, you listen to him talk in the Sean McVay show, and you could tell, I mean, this game really bothered him. And I like, JB brought up running the ball and how effective it was. And, he was talking about how he was really, impressed, appreciative, whatever, of the run. So, I mean, the hope is that he's kind of trending towards what we want him to be and just be more of a balanced guy. Don't just be, 65-35 pass be more closer to 55-45 pass. We're not going to get our way. It's 2023. It's the passing era. They're not going to run the ball 60 to 40 times, right? They're not going to run at 60%. But what we do want to see is just it's starting to get a little bit more balanced. And I think that's something that the more often he's going to evaluate the film, the more often it's being put out there, and just Kevin Dotson in the run game, what he's been able to do, I think the more likely it is they're going to go back and be like, all right, we got to run the ball. Doesn't matter who's out there. We got to run the ball, and we're going to expect this from them, and they're going to have to do it. So if it's 30 times and that's not enough, run it 37. I don't care. I mean, just keep running the football.
I agree. And guys, we'll see. I know this has been a little bit of a longer episode, so we won't drag it out. But yeah, I'm really hoping that we can bounce back against the Cowboys. And like I said, beating the Cowboys is just a little bit sweeter. I have problems. I have issues. It's deep rooted from my childhood where I just am not a Cowboys fan. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if we can pull off the win on Sunday. You and I predict that they will, and that's going to do it, guys. So as always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on social media at the Alexis Kraft. You can follow Jake at Ellenbogen. And guys, we'll be back soon. But until then, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.